Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Night Court Narrative. If you guys are new here, we are actually missing one of our co-hosts. He is not joining us today because he is a loser McDoodoo head. Don't tell him I said that. Anywho, happy February. It has, I feel like, already been such a crazy year. Has it? I mean, am I the only one there? But on top of all of that, I decided to go above and beyond, and I was like, you know what, Elvish, it is time. I wanted to take on the massive bookish challenge, and I decided that I wanted to go out of my way and try and read between 250 and 300 books this year. Mind you, I have never done this before. I'm lucky if I get maybe 50 books in a year. So with that being said, I read a total of 29 books for the month of January. Holy shit. But right here above Violet, I have all of the books that I read in the month of January. And, if you will, let's chill, have a seat, let's discuss them. We've never done this kind of format on Night Court Narrative before, but I'm here to try it. I'm going to be ranking all of these books in no particular order, of course, but I have best to absolute worst, life-changing, these were amazing, might read again, maybe not, and I need therapy or a refund. Oh, if, you've been a part of Night Court Narrative for a minute, some of these books you actually do recognize. They have been on this podcast before, or they are books that might have an episode in the next week or two. So you might need to stick around, yeah? But yeah. I'm Elvish. Next to me is our companion Violet, or we call her Violence. If you know, you know. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So I want to kind of get the I need like therapy or something out of the way, because there were just a few books here that they were not it for me. But I feel like this type of video allows me to finally sit down and talk about all the books that we cannot read for the podcast. And yeah, it's therapeutic for me. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, we're working on this one right here. The I need therapy or a refund. Okay, I'm just gonna be real. To start off with, hello, can you be beautiful? Oh, it's not gonna be beautiful. It snaps in. Oh, that's ugly. Okay, Same Time Next Year by Tessa Bailey. I'm not gonna lie to you, I DNF'd this book. Out of the 29 books, I DNF'd only 3, which, I typically don't like to DNF, but I felt like I couldn't. This book was so incredibly slow. It was about the NHL. I mean, if you don't know acronyms, hockey, but it was set in Canada, and the NHL is not in Canada. So that was automatically like not it. But then from like not even the first chapter, I guess, they were already in like some vulgar shit. And don't get me wrong, you see some of the books that I have on here, I'm okay with vulgar shit, but it wasn't it. Like, the writing style was rough. And I mean, we did read Tessa Bailey. I think it was Window Shopping. We did read Window Shopping, I believe, in December. And it wasn't bad, I'm not gonna lie. But Same Time Next Year, not it. It's only, I think, like 150 pages, or maybe a 2-hour listen if you're doing an audiobook. I would save that 2 hours. I do need a refund after buying that book. However, let's be mindful that it was a free book. I still demand a refund, yeah? So up next with the I demand a refund. This is going to be such an unpopular opinion, and I am so very sorry. But the spell shop. I believe it's Sarah Durst Beth Dur I don't know. The spell shop. Okay. Oh, let's talk about this. I promise you, I don't know the plot or storyline of this book. This was actually the second book that I DNF'd. This book just holds a very, very wonderful drinking game where anytime, okay, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it because you know what? I'm all about spoils on this channel. I don't want to spoil this particularly. Read this book if you like, and at the beginning, take note of how many times 2 words are said and take a shot every single time that those 2 words are said. You'd be drunk by chapter 5. I'm just saying, it was so repetitive. It was so, I don't want to say it was hard to follow because like the plot was pretty decent from what I gathered, but it was just very juvenile, if that makes sense. It just felt like a super childish Wattpad-y type feel that wanted to be fantasy, but then they've never specialized in fantasy. Like, I'm not saying that the author doesn't do fantasy. I'm just saying that that's how the writing felt to me personally. Was not really a fan. Yeah. So we're actually gonna skip ahead a little bit. I think I have one more of the I need therapy or a refund, but this list is just so massive, so I just kind of want to skip ahead a little bit. Maybe not. You know, this is gonna be yet another unpopular opinion, and I'm so sorry, but I have rock, paper, scissors. This book was actually pretty decent. However, it was a little bit hard for me to follow because there are 3 point of views that, yeah, it's 3 point of views that go throughout the book. You have the weird lady, which you end up discovering is the ex-wife. You have the new wife. You have the husband. The husband has absolutely 0 personality throughout the entire book. The only thing that is mentioned quite literally every single chapter, maybe twice a chapter at some points, is his face blindness. That is the only thing going for him. He's kind of an asshole. Like I said, he has 0 personality, and anytime anything goes wrong, or if he causes something to go wrong, or if he starts an argument, well, I have face blindness, so get over it, you know? And like, he just uses that card the entire book, to the point where whenever we did finally get the plot ending at the very end, I just felt like I wasn't feeling it anymore, you know? And don't get me wrong, the plot twist at the end was pretty good. I did look on Goodreads because if you didn't know, you know, Night Court and Narrative is on Goodreads. We review all of the books on there and post whatever. But everyone on Goodreads, all I guess equally decided to start hating on this book at the exact same time. But they all said that the last, Jesus fucking Christ, marshmallow mouth right now. They all said that the last 25% of the book was the best. I do agree to that. I think if the writing style from the last 25% was persistent throughout the entire book, this book might have easily been between a 4 and a 5-star rating. I really liked it. I would recommend it to people. Me personally, I didn't like the repetitiveness and how slow it was, so that's why it's in the maybe not, but it was good. So this one is a little bit difficult. I'm just gonna go, my list is different than your list, the one that you see. For some reason they're out of order, but I'm just gonna go down the list. This one is a little bit difficult. This book was absolutely phenomenal. However, the middle of it was incredibly slow. but still interesting enough. So I might switch this around later, but let's do might read again. I have What Lies Between Us. This book, oh my god, this book knows how to put victim after victim after victim on every single person. So like, this book is about a mother and daughter that live together. Well, live is synonymous, I guess. The daughter ends up, I guess, let's say, entrapping the mother with chains, everything. They don't allow her to eat hardly, no bathroom, like no sanitary needs whatsoever are met. She's only let out every once in a while. We do find out that the mother eventually, the father, you know, like just kills him off. Which then in turn, it wasn't actually the mother, it was the daughter. So, you know, the entire time, and like everything that happens in this book is always pointed at the mother. So you're always like, you're reading the book feeling as if this mom is just like this really horrible person and she has a right to be locked up. Not saying anyone ever has a right to be locked up, but in the sense of the book, you're just like, okay, you know, maybe the daughter is locking the mother up for the safety of everybody in that town or whatever the case. But then the book has a plot twist where everything that was blamed on the mother turns around to be about the daughter. And then you have about 4 to 5 other plot twists in there that, like, I feel like every 2 to 3 chapters, it left me, like, either with my mouth open or, like, gasping. And I don't know, I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. I can't tell if I want to leave it in the these were amazing or the might read again. So I'm going to just leave it in the might read again right now. And like I said, we might, you know, switch it up in a minute. The next one is actually the book that I just finished reading yesterday. This one is Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry. This book was absolutely phenomenal. This book almost received a 5-star rating. It actually received a 4.75. So it was right there. It was right. I mean, let's be so for real. This book probably received like a 4.9. It is right there. This book is very good. If you've ever seen the Netflix show On My Block, in my personal opinion, it gave me that vibe. It's about this teenage girl in high school. She always writes all of her lists down. Lists as in, you know, I mean, exactly, times I ugly cried, people I would kiss, my favorite movies, all of that good stuff. She writes absolutely everything down. The boy behind her is named Carter. He, I guess, loses the binder in first period, and the entire book is about them trying to find the people that stole the binder and is now blackmailing her. I mean, yeah, that's basically it. I don't know what I was gonna say after that, but you know, with them blackmailing her, they're basically publishing all of her lists to the school, and not all of her lists are pretty good. I mean, it does paint her in a bad picture with what she's writing. So she is told by her blackmailer to go out and finish XYZ on the list, and it takes a girl out of her shell and allows her to branch out. I believe she goes to her first club, her first concert, has her first kiss. Like, it's a really good and wholesome book. This book, however, does touch on a lot of racial stuff. I did really enjoy it. I do like the educational aspect of it. It was very nice. The only reason why it did not get a 5-star from me is I do feel like there's, I believe, only 2, maybe 3 instances in the book where the racial, I feel like, is poking rather than being educational. And to me personally, there were 2 to 3 times in the book where it was not necessary to discuss that or to say that or to have that thought. I don't know. I'm not that person to sit there and say, like, no one can have their feelings or no one can have everyone is validated in their own way. However, in that case, I felt as if, they're over here talking about race in this book, like the whole, I guess, class group of friends, but every once in a while they would say something racial that just somewhat you can take it as being racist rather than educational. So that was the only thing that kind of, didn't make this book life changing, but that's just my 2 cents. If you read this book, please let me know what you thought. I actually really liked it. I'm definitely going to read that one again at some point. I really enjoyed that. Up next is a book that is obviously going to make y'all wonder. I'm just going to go ahead. I have Little Stranger. This book was, yeah, it's one that I am 1000% reading again. It is one that actually, I guess spoiler alert, this book was not on the podcast lineup. So for the podcast, we already have every single book that we are reading and when we're posting it all the way until the new year of 2026. So we already know everything that's planned, just so that nothing comes up, because we do work full-time jobs, and then on top of that we are Twitch streamers, and on top of that I also do have an Etsy store. So I have no time in my life to have like a what are we gonna read today, so. And as the last book, I'm a very list oriented person as well, so I was like, yeah, you know what. However, we already have all of our books planned out until 2026. I read this one and I messaged Aqua and I was like, this book right here, yeah, it's getting added. We're gonna do this book. And he's like, you know what? I am terrified, but let's do it. And that is okay. But Little Stranger is about 2 orphans that came from a very abusive, let's say like drug-ish household. They were adopted by, a pretty wealthy family. It's a girl and a boy. The boy is 1 year older. She is very outspoken, very adventurous, very, very advanced, I would say, for her age. She ends up growing up to be like a cheerleader in high school. She has all the friends in the world. It doesn't actually point fingers to it, but I would say she's kind of like the popular girl. All while her brother Malachi is throughout the book mute. He only talks through sign language. However, from the moment they meet, he does get very obsessive and very possessive over his sister. And, it gets to the point where anytime any guy touches her, looks at her, he goes out of his way and he just snaps and hurts them. And I guess it is mentioned in the book multiple times. That's mainly the plot, but their mother, or I guess their adoptive mother, has set her up for arranged marriages. So she goes out of her way to constantly keep dating these guys to see which one that she's going to get married to. But Malachi is already like, you're mine whether you like it or not. So unfortunately, and very fortunately, they start doing stuff, and it is a dark romance, so you can obviously tell how that goes. And that is all I am saying on this book, because there's going to be a whole video on it. So go watch that video if you want to know more. All I'm saying though is I did both. I did the ebook, so Kindle, and I did the audiobook. Even if you're not an audiobook fan, audiobook. The audiobook is a 20 out of 20. Or I guess like a 20 out of 5. And the ebook is a 5 out of 5. So audiobook. Up next is... This one is rough for me. This one is very rough. Up next, I have Hunting Adeline. So it's book 2 in the series. I'm still gonna say that it was amazing. Hunting Adeline was a little bit slower than the first one. you know, the second one, it starts off 2 months later. We have Addie kidnapped. She's with the like cartel on the way to get trafficked. She's getting, you know, abused, all that good stuff. None of it's good. It's actually quite sad. But, you know, on the other end, you have Zayd and Jay, all of his companions, her best friend, all looking for her. They do eventually find her. It's basically like the Hunger Games, but inside of the trap house in a way. And they end up finding her. After she gets out, you know, the Addie we knew and loved in the first book is completely changed. And this was the book where I actually felt bad for Zayd. I felt like he didn't really deserve a lot of the backlash that he got in this book. But in the end, it did end up better. I don't know. This book was very heart-wrenching, but the book was also very slow. I did like this book. I did think it was amazing. I think it's like chapter 21 to the end, so like 50% of the book was like absolutely amazing. Almost gave it a 5 stars, but the beginning of the book was just really, really slow. I don't know. It wasn't fully there. Next, this one is a welcome reunion. This one is actually book 1.5 to A Perfect Child, which is actually next. I can put that one up here too. The Perfect Child is maybe not, but a welcome reunion is I need therapy or a refund. I'm going with the refund. So The Perfect Child is about 2 doctors. They end up getting in a heavily malnourished, like abused child, and as they're mainly the father, as he's trying to work with her therapy and all that, he ends up adopting her as their own. We find out that the child is literally Satan himself, and she goes out of her way. She taunts the mother, she hurts the mother. Eventually, once the mother does have another child, she ends up going out of her way to hurt the child. She hurts their cat. It's basically, think of Omen, the movie Omen. That's literally what this book is about. So I mean, watch that movie. If not, just know that this book is literally demon child after demon child. And of course, the father the entire time was, oh, my perfect angel wouldn't do that. Or the father would literally be on the couch, look over, and I mean, this didn't happen in the book, but as like just to give you like kind of an idea, the father would be on the couch, look over, see his little girl like loading a gun, and the father's like, oh, my daughter didn't kill him. Okay, bud. Like it was that. And then A Welcome Reunion is I think like 15 or 16 years later. She is now 18 years old. She writes a book and goes on a talk show for an interview. The whole book was obviously spun around yet again, saying that everything that happened to her in the doctor's household was neglect, and that the mom was crazy and whatever. Everyone in the world believes it. So the mom and the social worker end up going out of their way. They take care of it all, and that is literally it. Like, that is literally it. Mind you, that book was like $2, but I deserve a refund on that $2. I know. So up next are 2 more. It's actually from the same author. I have Stars Collide and Cover Story. These are both by the exact same author. I believe Rachel something. I might be able to look it up. It might be on the screen here. It is now to my understanding that I'm not a fan of her writing. I am not it. Like, she's not it. I don't like it. I think anything with her name on it from now on, unfortunately, I am so sorry to say this, I will not be reading. Stars Collide is, they're actually both a part of the LGBTQ community. The Stars Collide is about two singers. I never knew that I would not be okay with books with like nonstop singing in it until I read that book, and then that is just not something I am interested in personally, so I won't be doing that ever again. And then Cover Story was about an actress and a stunt bodyguard. Well, it was a bodyguard turned into a fake girlfriend. And it Cover Story was okay, okay at best. It wasn't good, but you know, these just I have nothing to tell you about them. Like they were that bad that I can't. Up next, we have My Vampire Plus One. This is book 2 in the My Vampire series. I absolutely loved this book. I do, however, love the first book a little bit more. My Vampire is a Roommate. That book, My Vampire was a Roommate, was absolutely life-changing. This one was almost there. I think the ending was a little bit slower for me personally and for my liking. However, the beginning of the book was absolutely outstanding. My Vampire series even has a 3rd book coming out in October. I think it's Vacation with a Vampire or something like that. And we are definitely going to be reading that. But, you know, this book wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst in the series. I'm talking about in the series. Like, but it was absolutely amazing. I really, really did love this book. I loved that it was about Reginald. It did have the fake dating trope, which I know a lot of people either like or don't like. It's very hit or miss in the book community, but it was basically a fake dating. She didn't know she was getting herself wrapped up into a vampire. However, at the beginning, he literally was very transparent. It was like, hey, by the way, I am a vampire. And she's like, yeah, LOL. Okay, bud. And then at the end was like, oh my God, like, you're a vampire. Like, but I told you this. So it was really good. I mean, I really like the fact that we got to see Reginald and his POV. Because in the first book, you really didn't get to see a lot of him. So I'm very glad that they brought him for a 2nd book. So I don't know. I really, really enjoyed that book. Up next, we have King of Wrath. This book is the 1st book in the Kings of Sin series. We have, I always say her name wrong, I feel like, so excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it, but it's Anna Hong, I believe. She is doing a 7-book series of the 7 Deadly Sins. This one is King of Wrath. This book, wow. So we actually just read it for the podcast. This was actually my 2nd time reading the book, and both times I gave it a 10 out of 10. I absolutely love everything about this book. You know, this book is about the arranged marriage yet again. A new to money family, the Lau family, ends up selling their daughter off to a multi-billionaire. I mean, yeah, I don't know why my brain keeps stopping. And you know, it's an arranged marriage, forced proximity type thing. Little does he know that the Francis Lau, the father of, I think her name's Vivian. I've read too many books this month. Vivian. He is actually blackmailing Dante Russo, trying to get Dante's brother killed off. And with that being said, the entire book is about either getting rid of, you know, his new up-and-coming wife or ruining the dad. And he eventually ends up falling in love and like head over heels for his wife. And you know, it's a very, very, very mafia-esque. I personally say mafia. Aqua doesn't say mafia, but it does feel very mafia-esque. So I would not I will never stop recommending this book. This book is fantastic. Up next, I have Still Beating. Okay, listen. With this book in particular, I know I didn't say it for the other two dark romance books, but for this book in particular, please read the trigger warnings, because I went into this book completely blind, and unfortunately, my only one trigger warning that I am not okay with is literally the entire topic of the book. However, it was done so well that I couldn't do anything but appreciate it. This book is about a woman and her stepbrother. They end up getting kidnapped and held hostage for, I believe, 22 days. The entire time they are down there, they are raped multiple times, mainly her. And the whole reason behind it is that the killer wants the two victims to fall in love before he takes one of their lives. For this book, obviously, we do spoilers this far into the video. They end up getting out and they do end up surviving, and it's basically a book about how to survive after a massive traumatic experience. And I absolutely loved that book with a passion. I will reread it, even though the topic is very hard. It was a very, very good book, and it was very good to see the survival aspect of it and how you become numb and, I don't want to say like immune to it, like once you're out of that situation, but speaking from traumatic experiences myself, it's good to see that representation in books rather than it constantly being traumatic and then unalived, and I really, really liked that book just for what it represented at towards the end. And I don't know, I recommend it. I just say for that one, please check your trigger warnings, because I thought it was a cute little book, maybe like a thriller or something. It was not, and it was very rough to get through when you go in blind. I'm just saying. Up next is one of my favorite book series that we have done on this channel. Unfortunately, with that being said, you're gonna be like, Elvish, are you okay? But I have Daydream, which is the third book in the Maple Hills series by Hannah Grace. The first was Icebreaker, the second one is Wildfire. Might read again is Daydream. I did not like this book. I was most excited for this book. We have Hallie and Henry. Henry focuses a lot on ADHD. If you know anything about the Icebreaker, I guess Maple Hill series, Hannah Grace likes to put in different mental aspects into each thing. So Icebreaker was about eating disorder and mental abuse, all that. The second one was about family abuse and anxiety. This one was about ADHD. This one was the one that I wanted to resonate the most with, and I was so excited for it. However, the book was so slow. The beginning, like I would say 3 chapters, and the last maybe 8 chapters felt like a Maple Hills book, and it sounded and felt and read like a Hannah Grace story. The whole beginning of the book, or like the whole middle of the book, excuse me, felt like it was a completely different author, and it was very, very slow. Literally, there wasn't much plot in this. I can't personally tell you more than maybe 20 seconds of a plot, and that breaks my heart to say out loud, but this one out of the series, it wasn't my favorite. Which brings me to Wildfire, which is, like I said, book 2, so this is the one that comes right before Daydream. Wildfire was amazing. I actually did read it twice. The first time I read it, it would have actually been in the might read again category with Daydream, but after reading it a second time, I do realize that I didn't reciprocate a lot of the information the first time around, and the book was actually amazing. the book does discuss a lot of, like I said, anxiety and family abuse, but the way the characters handle it, the way the characters find salvation in one another, and just the amazing twisted ending that we kind of, and not twisted, I want to say twisted as in there's like this massive plot twist, but you have the girl that is always walked all over completely out of nowhere, you know, because of the help from Russ. He allows her this extra sense of like courage to go out of her way, and she stands up to the biggest bully in her life, which is her father, and he does the exact same with his. And at the end, you know, Russ's father is now part of the picture. He is now there helping build, you know, her dream bookstore and just helping them with life. And you know, at the beginning, all he wanted to do was gamble, do drugs, drink, all that. I don't actually think drugs were a part of it. I think it was just gambling and drinking, but I really did like that book. Was it life-changing? No. Could you live without it? Probably. But out of the series, that one was really good. I would recommend reading that one. I recommend the Maple Hill series to anyone. But like I said, check your trigger warnings, because even though these are cutesy covers, the topics inside are not that cutesy, and it's very, very, very spicy. It's a lot of smut. Up next, we have Night Shift. This book, oh my god, this book was phenomenal. Listen, it's about a girl that works, you know, the night shift at a library. This star basketball player comes in to start getting, you know, old poetry for class. They end up hitting it off. He decides to include her in a lot of things. Like, they kind of go on a mini date, even though she doesn't think it's a date, but it's kind of like a tutoring where she goes in and helps him with the poetry, because, you know, he's not very keen on poetry, which, I mean, neither am I. So she has to, I guess, if you will, translate it for him in layman's terms. And, you know, they end up hitting it off. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of sadness. There's just, this, for me personally, was such a light read. It just rolls off the tongue super quick. It's very fluffy. It's very funny. It's very, like, it has everything you need a good romance book to be. And, you know, this might not be everyone's cup of tea. So if you read it and you're like, damn, Elvish liked me, I am sorry. But you know what? I absolutely fucking loved this book. I will not stop recommending it. And I'm actually going to see if I can include this one in the podcast. So don't tell Aqua, but I'm going to try and, like, oh, maybe we can. I did add a book to the list, but I didn't realize that it doesn't come out until June, and we're supposed to be reading it in like the next 2 weeks. Whoops. I maybe need to start checking release dates, but I was just so excited. Whatever. The next one is Before We Disappear. I'm gonna put this in the maybe not. However, it is hovering the line between both of these. I didn't like this book at all. This one is also a part of the LGBTQ community. I don't know if I can even tell you what this is about. It's about a magician, and I want to be magician. I don't know. One of them is held captive. The other one is like trying to like find him so that they can be together. Okay. The characters in this book are all one-dimensional. So I personally could not tell what character was speaking unless like the chapter said chapter 1 blah blah blah. You know, I couldn't personally tell who was speaking. I also felt like the plot was all over the place because you had two different POVs. but with the two different POVs, you have two completely different storylines. But again, with all of the characters and the side characters being all one-dimensional, all having the same feel, the same personality, same everything, whenever you have two parallel POVs happening and then eventually they cross, none of it made sense to me. And I couldn't keep up with it to save my life. It got to the point where, like, halfway through it, I ended up just putting the audiobook on and I just blindly listened to it while I worked, and I reciprocated absolutely none of the ending. I have no idea what happened towards the end. I was just very excited for this book to be over. It was actually, did I DNF this book? Hold on, I have my trusty little book binder. Did I DNF this book? I think I actually DNF'd it. I did not. Okay, so yeah, I have no idea what happened at the ending. It was not good. I do feel like, you know, that's one thing that the Maple Hill series does well, and like Night Shift does well. If you're going to have multiple characters in a book, definitely give them their own personalities if you're able to write that way. If not, I mainly stick to one or two people, because having like 4 to 5 people in this, not being able to tell the difference between any of them, it was rough. It was very, very hard. Up next, we have Haunting Adeline. This one is the first book in the Cat Mouse duet. Haunting Adeline was absolutely life-changing. I loved every single thing about it. It was just phenomenal. I always heard every single person talking about it, and like, you know, all over TikTok. Even when I would go into Barnes and Noble, everyone was always crowded around it, and it kind of scared me a little bit because, you know, that was my first dark romance. I've never read dark romance before that, and mind you, this was like my second time reading it this month. I had 4 rereads this month, and, you know, I was very scared going into it because we read extreme horror last year, and it's now a genre that we will never ever ever touch again because the trigger warnings were a little bit too triggering for us. So I was very scared jumping into this, and I found out that dark romance is one of my favorite genres because of that. And this book is absolutely amazing. It's, you know, this woman ends up getting a gothic type estate from her deceased grandmother. She moves in, ends up getting a stalker. The stalker falls in love with her. The thing about this book, and, you know, take this however you will, this book does walk a very thin line between grape, and that's what a lot of people have an issue with on this book. If you see any negative comments on this book, that's typically what it is. It walks a fine line, and for that, it's basically up to your interpretation on if it is or is not. Me personally, I said it was not, because even though she verbally said no, every other thing, I mean, you can't verbally say no but also wrap all of your like being around him and pull him closer, and no, you can't do that, but give me more. Like, it doesn't work that way in my personal opinion. So this book is up for your interpretation on whether or not that will bother you or not, but this book was absolutely phenomenal. The stalker is Zaid. He is precious bean number 1. I absolutely adore him. I know that sounds crazy, but if you read this book, you will understand. Like, if this is your cup of tea, you will understand. But Zaid Meadows is absolutely one of my favorites. He is psychotic, but psychotic enough to where it just makes sense, you know? It just makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. Up next, we have Home is Where the Bodies Are. This one is a fine line between might read again and maybe not. It was amazing. I did like this book. However, amazing is used very, very loosely here. We do have a pretty decent plot. it does get incredibly slow throughout the entire middle section, to the point where I feel like if you are an anime fan, I feel like the whole middle of the book is just a filler episode to the already pre-existing show that we're watching, if that makes sense. So I feel like if you cut the middle out and only read the beginning and the end, this book would have easily been probably like a 4.5 out of 5-star rating. However, I think this book received, let me look at my trusty little journal. I think this book received this book received a 4.5 star altogether from me personally. I really liked the twist. I really liked the I was on the edge of my seat for most of the time reading this. Not necessarily saying it was that great and oh my god, but like it was pretty trippy. It was pretty good. Like it left me like once a chapter ended, I immediately had to start a new chapter in order to figure out what happened. And you know, it was pretty decent. It was good. I don't know. I recommend it. It's my very first Geneva Rose book, and I hear a lot about her. I actually have another book behind me of her, and I think I might attempt that. But so far, I think I'm a fan of her. The writing style is very unique, but it's very easy to read. It's very easy to comprehend. It's like slide off the tongue type writing, and I love that because you guys know that when there's a rough book to read, there is a rough fucking book to read. And luckily that wasn't it. I just wish it wasn't as slow as what it was. This one is difficult. I don't actually know where to put this book, if I'm being honest. So we're gonna put it here. It's Two Can Play. It's two game developers from two different companies. They come together because the two companies have to work on this game together. Both companies specialize in two completely different I guess fields of game development, and they have to come together in order to make the perfect game. And you know, as I mentioned before, I am a Twitch streamer. I do stream video games, so video gaming is one of my very big passions alongside reading. So having a book about games was just so perfect to me. This book was really good. Okay, let me rephrase. This book might be in the might read again section. Maybe. But it was really slow. It was only a 4-hour book. They only have an audiobook version, so I had to listen to it on Audible. It's only 4 hours long if you listen to it normally. However, I listened to my book, depending on the book, at 1.8 to 2.5 speed. So my book was only an hour and a half long. It was a little too short for what it was, and I do wish that it had a little bit more plot. I wish it was just a little bit longer so that we could get more backstory or get more plot in there, as I mentioned, so that we could get a little bit more character development. But what it was and what it was worth, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was good. I don't feel like there was enough of it to make a decent story. I understand this is a tiny novella. It's just to basically, it's like a palate cleanser to get you from book to book. But I feel like that book had a lot of potential, and if the author gave us more, it would have been really great. However, I'm kind of nervous because I have a lot of Ali Hazelwood on my TBR, and that's my first Ali Hazelwood book, and I kind of wasn't feeling it all that much, but I was. So I'm nervous because I feel like her books are going to be 50-50 with me. So I don't know. I'm nervous. Up next is Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm unfortunately going to put it here. I believe that is the final book that I am putting on the I Need Therapy or a Refund. This book was great. For what I read, chapter 1 was a very uncomfortably long chapter. It was hilarious. It had me laughing up a storm. Like actually LOLing. I loved the whole story behind it. You know, we have Santa's son. He's kind of a fuck up. He does everything that he shouldn't be doing. Yeah. but the book was mainly, from what I gathered, the book was mainly all about politics. And, you know, I understand politics come into play every once in a while, but you know, I in this case it didn't work for me personally. I ended up DNFing it because it just became a sob fest. The main character basically just cried and cried and cried from what I gathered. And it just got to the point where I was like, you know what? And every 2 seconds it was, well, my father did this, and sob. My father, sob. Sob. And I'm just like, I'm good. So I ended up DNFing it, I think chapter 8. So I didn't even read maybe like 30% of it. So if you like it, by all means, I might give the second book a chance, but only if it's free. Like, I think it's on Kindle Unlimited, and I'll do that gladly, but the other, no. Up next is Hate Mail. This one is absolutely life-changing. This one had so many fucking plot twists that I audibly gasped 3 times, and I was reading it at work. So I swear to God, if my boss was watching the cameras, he would have thought I was on drugs or some shit. But this is absolutely amazing. It's basically about a young girl. She gets a pen pal. I mean, she's an adult now, but as a young girl, she gets a pen pal in her class. They write letters back and forth for a good handful of years, like 10 plus years. The banter is hilarious. Like, all of their letters are kind of like hateful, but a funny hateful towards one another. So they have absolutely amazing banter. She then goes out of her way to go across the country to find this mystery person, while at the same time dating her upstairs neighbor, which kind of made me upset because the upstairs neighbor was a really decent guy, and I didn't feel like he needed, you know, the betrayal and the lies of her talking to another guy technically. But, you know, she's going around trying to find him while going on dates. We end up finding the mysterious guy, and dun dun dun, yeah, it's her boyfriend. Sorry, you know, spoilers are here. I couldn't hold that in. We are actually doing this book on the podcast as well. This book should actually be up in a week or 2. So if you want the full story on that and our full reaction and everything, by all means, go watch that video. But yeah. Up next is Dungeons and Drama. This book was absolutely amazing. It's about the D&D world. This one particularly, it's about theater and Dungeons and Dragons, which are 2 things that I absolutely love. She's a theater kid, gets in trouble, has to go work with her dad for a few months, ends up meeting this group of people that play D&D. She has no idea what that is, so she ends up playing D&D with them. And yeah, that's literally the entire book. It was really good. This is the first book in the series. I actually like this better than the second book, but it was really good. Which, the second book, I don't know. You know, I might read again. The second book also resonates with us a little bit because the second book is about a D&D group. They invite a new girl in there, which is obviously her. She ends up joining the group, and they are live streamers. They stream on an unknown website, but from the way it sounds, it's Twitch. They're also Twitch streamers and everything. However, I do feel like in this book, the characters kind of lose their personality a little bit. So there's a point in the book where I can't tell if it's 1 out of 3 different characters talking. Which even Aqua kind of agreed to that as well. So that book was a little bit more rough to get through. Unfortunately, at the end of both of these books, they have basically the same thing happen. So this one just didn't feel very good to me, but it was still really good for what it was worth. And I absolutely loved that they were live streamers. I love the representation from behind the camera. It is difficult. I know a lot of people say, oh, live streaming is easy. It's not. It is not. There's a lot that goes behind it. There's a lot that goes behind this of what you're watching right now that a lot of people don't really think of. So, yeah. Up next is Layla. This one is by Colleen Hoover. Now, as I'm saying right now, everyone shits on Colleen Hoover. Everyone says that she's a horrible writer. I don't... Oh, okay, well, let me phrase it this way. Everyone shits on Colleen Hoover and they say that she's a horrible writer. And then you have all of these bandwagon bitches that come by. They've never picked up a book from her, but they see a TikTok video and now everyone automatically hates Colleen Hoover even though they know nothing about her. And I fucking hate those group of people. I'm gonna be so fucking legit with you. So I refuse to be that person. So this month I read 2 Colleen Hoover books and next month I'm reading 1. This book was fantastic. Actually, we're reading this one in the podcast as well, or for the podcast as well, but it's going to be later this year. It's just plot twist after plot twist. I loved the writing style. I loved all of the plot twists. You know, it's about a man and wife. They she's at her sister's wedding. He's in the band playing at the wedding. They end up hitting it off. His ex creepy fan site ex-girlfriend whatever ends up coming and, you know, pew-pewing them. They both survive. She's a little bit different. Turns out when both of the women, you know, died, their souls were in limbo and their souls switched bodies. And so the entire time he's wondering why his wife has been different. It was the crazy pew-pewer the entire time rather than his wife. And he ends up falling in love with a ghost in the house. The ghost is actually his wife. And so they have to figure out how to get them to switch bodies. I fucking loved this book. This was amazing. Up next is The Unhoneymooners. This was fantasmo. This book is about a twin sister and I guess the brother of the groom. Husband and wife have a wedding. They get sick. Everyone gets sick except for the 2 I just mentioned. So brother and sister have to go out and lie saying that they're married. Obviously brother and sister of the bride, brother of the groom. Let's make that very clear. They are not siblings. But they end up going on this cruise that was won, so it was an all paid for expense thing. The only thing is they had to lie and say that they were married the entire time and they had to pretend like they were the married couple. They obviously don't like each other at the beginning. It's kind of like a forced proximity type thing, a forced proximity, fake dating type deal. And by the end of the book, they fell in love. She does end up getting her dream job and losing it basically within the same day, which I still think is fucking shitty, but that's pretty much it. This book was very, very good. It was very funny. It was very wholesome. It was a very, very good read. The next 2, well, we only have 2 left, but I have Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. This was my very first Lynn Painter book, and this by far possibly made Lynn Painter one of my favorite authors. Happily Never After is about a woman who's about to get married. She is wanting an out of her wedding so that she doesn't have to pay back all the money and all that good stuff, but her soon-to-be husband is a lying cheat, so she ends up hiring an objector to come in and object to the wedding and to get it to stop, which is where Max comes in. You know, they eventually kick it off. He asked her to be his partner in crime, so they go out and they start objecting to weddings together. They end up getting to a wedding, and unfortunately it's his ex-girlfriend that he was madly in love with, so he kind of does the whole standoffish thing. And, you know, the banter between them 2 is so gorgeous. I love it. The character development from both of them is outstanding. The writing style is outstanding. Just everything about this book is amazing. I've read it twice now. I will read it again. And I even did my part personally where I was at Barnes & Noble and a young girl was looking at the books and She was like, I hear that Lynn Painter's amazing. I don't know what to get. And I picked this book up and I hand it to her. And I'm like, read this first. And I watched her walk all the way to the counter and check out. And I was the proudest I've ever been. I did my due diligence there. I will not stop recommending this book. And finally, the final book of the episode, we have Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book, once again, I have read this twice. I will continue to read this book. This book is absolutely fucking outstanding. This book is one of my all-time favorites ever. You have Verity. She is an author. She ends up getting into an accident, and she is unable to finish writing her book series. So her husband, Jeremy, ends up going out and finds a writer to come in and co-write with her. Basically fill in to rewrite, or not rewrite, but to like finish writing the rest of the series. So she moves into the household. Crazy shit starts going down. She ends up finding a manuscript that Verity wrote, and the manuscript holds a lot of suspicious activity, and it goes hand in hand with some of the creepy shit happening around the house. Jeremy and the new bitch end up hitting it off, you know, even though he's still technically married to the woman in the next room that's unable to move. You know, plot twist, she wasn't actually paralyzed or anything. So she's been terrorizing the house this entire time. And we find out, you know, plot twist, it wasn't actually her that was crazy the entire time. It was actually the husband. And, you know, that is one plot twist that I'm never going to get over. I'm not going to everly financially, mentally, emotionally, or anything recover from that plot twist. And yeah. So if anything, please read Verity. I absolutely fucking adore Verity so much. And from the looks of it so far, I've only read 2 Colleen Hoover books, but I am actually really, really enjoying them. So with that being said, please don't be a bandwagon bitch. As, you know, I'm not saying anything about the author herself. I'm not speaking about Colleen Hoover herself. But let's say if it was about you. Let's say your best friend Stacy, let's call her, said some negative shit about you. Spread it around, and before anyone ever gave you the chance to explain yourself, or before anyone ever came up and, you know, asked you how you were, they just automatically assumed you were the person that Stacy said you were, and now your life is fucked up because of it. You know, you wouldn't like that. So let's not be a bandwagon bitch, and let's not do that to other people. If you see a book that you absolutely loved on here and you do not agree with my rating, by all means, please let me know. I would love to discuss this. And like I said, if you are new here, I usually have a co-host with me. His name is Aqua. And yeah. So this was different. I'm sorry, this was different. You know, I've never done a video like this before. You know, we've never done a video like this on the podcast. This was fun, and I really, really hope you guys enjoyed it. I know next month, I think I have a plan of doing like 25 books. I don't know if that's even possible, but we're gonna see. I believe I have 2 or 3 series on that one as well that I'm doing, and I am so very excited. But yeah, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you agreed with, what you didn't agree with, what books you loved, what books you didn't like. What books do you recommend? Because there's a chance a book you recommend might be coming this year, or it could be in one of the wrap-ups that I do. So yeah. But either way, I hope everyone has a very, very, very lovely day. And I will see absolutely everyone in the next video, yeah?